every time you fight, you position yourself for the next one. And when you know in your mind there is no next one, it's very difficult to get motivated.
Welcome, everyone, to Boxing Scene's top stories on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Also, it's the best way to watch the best fights on ProBox TV. Well, former IBF flyweight champion Sonny Edwards in the UK dominated a surprisingly one-sided fight to Galal Yafai, and not just that, retiring afterward and saying, win, lose, or draw, I was going to retire. Now, that was post-fight after getting stopped in round number 6. At the end of round number 2, actually telling his coach, can I be honest? I don't want to be here. Which that is hard to see as a fan. When does a fighter know when it's time to fight or go home? And should it have been earlier? To help me answer these questions, I have the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, joining me. Let me start with you, Paulie. You've been through camps. Camp is when you realize whether you have it in you or not. People act like it's on fight day. It's usually the lead up there. When does a fighter know in camp that maybe I don't have it for this fight? What's your thought?
I think it happens when you start getting injuries in camp that you weren't getting before, little constant injuries and nags. I think it happens when you have trouble making weight and, it's a constant problem. And you're more annoyed making weight than you used to be, and it's always annoying. Don't get me wrong, but you just don't feel like doing it, but you got to do it in order to get paid because you got to honor the contract and get the fight so you can get paid. And now you're no longer training because for the passion and enthusiasm of trying to accomplish something, you're training and doing the work because you got to make weight and you got to fight. I don't know. These are some of the things that were going through my mind at the end of my career when I knew it was over. But if more so than anything else, when you retire in your head before the last fight. For me, I was saying that, and it seems like Sonny has done the same thing, where he may have, gone into this fight already with his head saying this is going to be the last fight. I remember my last fight. I already was saying myself in camp, the things I was going through in camp, I was like, I will never do this again, So it's a lot harder to get motivated on fight night when you're thinking like that because there's nothing, you're always fighting for the next one, even though you want to look great in this one, looking great in this one positions you for the next one. And so every time you fight, you position yourself for the next one. And when you know in your mind there is no next one, it's very difficult to get motivated. After my last fight, where like I said, I had done that, I understood that feeling like, you know what, in my mind, I just couldn't get motivated the same way I could earlier in my career. I respect Mickey Ward a lot more because Mickey Ward before the third fight with Toro Gotti had said this is going to be his last fight, and he still fought his ass off in that fight, Yeah. So that's unbelievable that, he can make that mental decision and still go out on fight night and perform with all his heart, because I don't think I could get that out of myself. And obviously, Sonny, we saw, couldn't get that out of himself as well. And I think that that's more so what the problem is. And, you get your Monday morning quarterbacks where, he quit, this and that. You know what? I'll tell you, I'll say this about what happened with Sonny Edwards the other day. If he never fights again, then I respect it. If he fights again, then this was a quit job. This way, if he does fight again. But if you never fight again, this is just what the evolution of a fighter throughout his career, where he just he doesn't have it anymore, and it's not there anymore mentally and physically, But if he does come back and convince himself to fight again, then you know what? Then this is like, okay, you know what? He's a quitter, and now he's just gonna come back and try to do it again. And what I'm saying by that is because people are gonna say, oh, well, you came back 2 years later and fought a bare knuckle fight. I'm not talking about gimmick fights. I'm not talking about YouTuber fights. If he comes back and fights Jake Paul, that doesn't count. You know what I mean? Like obviously, I wouldn't even blame him. But I'm talking about if you continue to pursue a career at the level that you're basically mocking everyone, where you're trying to pursue championships and you're trying to pursue bigger fights, then yes, then this was a quit job. But I don't foresee Sonny doing that. Like I said, if you're never gonna fight again in non-gimmick boxing, in real boxing, then you know what? For me, this wasn't a quit job. This is just a realization that it's not there anymore. Because Sonny Edwards has had it there. Sonny Edwards has been a world championship fighter, so it's not something. Oh, this is exposing him. No. He was a world championship fighter. He was a world-class fighter. This is just something that happens as you sort of go through the motions through a boxing career, and your body's just physically and mentally can't take it anymore.
Remember, took a beating from Bam Rodriguez. This is a guy who was in tough fights, and he had paid his dues. Chris, one of the things you and I were talking about off air, I think the last time we were here, was when a fighter's shot, they can't pull the trigger. A lot of people think it's because your chin goes or something like this. Fighters can be in good shape, they can still take a shot, but they can't quite pull the trigger. Did you see that in Edwards in this fight?
No, I don't think so. I think this is much more mental than physical. And to piggyback off what you said, Champ, it starts in the gym with the physical, and then that the physical being understanding that you're not the same athlete you used to be, understanding that you can't do the same things you did when you were younger. You have to pull back on the intensity to keep yourself getting injured. That all starts to lead into the mind. Once the mind's gone, your career is over, because you can, if your mind is strong and the body's not the same, you can still get pretty far. A couple of my comebacks, my body was not the same, but my mind was still sharp. Remember, Paulie, after one of my fights with Tommy Coyle, you grabbed me and you were like, yo, you're still in this. That was a tough fight. You wanted that. You wanted the
I
fight.
was like Zach. I was like the movie The Hangover.
You still got it.
You still got it.
You know, you said you're still willing to go to those dark places and be uncomfortable. He's like, you can make a real run. And I was 35, at that point, but still, I still had the mind. My body wasn't the same for sure. I was injured the entire camp, but mentally, I still was willing to go into those dark places. And I think once that goes away, you're done. And I think that's what happened with Sonny. I don't think his physicality has eroded. He's 28 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think a healthy Sonny Edwards beats you fight. His style is very, very difficult. I've liked Sonny's body of work. He's beaten some really good fighters. But I also, Jimmy, you brought up the Bam fight. I also look at that fight and I wonder how much that loss has not been worked out in the mind of Sonny Edwards. And the reason I say that is, listen, it's not about losing. It's about how you lose. And listen, if he went out there and boxed beautifully and Bam just caught him, I think that's a lot easier to pill to accept. But the fact that Bam went out there and out jabbed him and outboxed him and outmaneuvered him and put him away, it's like, man, if I can't outbox this guy, what can I do with this guy? I can't fight him. I got to outbox him. And then he outboxes me. That plants a seed of doubt in your mind. And I talk about the delusion that fighters need to have. You got to think you can fight King Kong any given night. And when you're Sonny Edwards and you're not a puncher, you're not a super physical guy, you've got to be that slick guy who's going to go 12 rounds and he's going to box from the outside, and you got to be on. You got to be primed. That's a harder career to make extend, especially if you're mentally not there. And when I mean mentally, it could be psychological in terms of not believing in your skill set anymore, psychologically not getting over a loss, or psychologically not wanting to be uncomfortable. So I think there's a lot of reasons for why Sonny did what he did, and I tip my hat to him for being so genuinely open and raw in the way that this happened. But yeah, I agree with you, Champ. If he never fights again, I tip my hat to him. Congratulations, Champ. You had a great career. But if he comes back in like 6 months or a year, and it's like, then I think that's a mistake.
When you look at it, Paulie, one of the things I couldn't wait to ask you guys is the decision of the coaches at the end of round number 2. Once again, he looks at his coach, goes, "Can I be real with you? I don't want to be here." Now, do you, Paulie, as a cornerman, would you confirm with him, hey, look me in the eyes, do you not want to be here? Wave it off, it's over. Do you think there was a problem letting him continue when he looks at his coach and says, hey, I don't want to be here? What's your thought on it, Paulie?
I think it's the coach's job to motivate you and to get you believing in yourself and getting through those dark moments in a fight, right? I mean, that's part of what the coach's job is in the corner, So there are dark moments that can come up, and maybe somebody's not as blunt as Sonny was in the corner. I mean, I've never seen somebody that blunt in the corner as Sonny was, yeah. But there, regardless, the coach has to do his job, and him trying to push back a little bit. I don't know, per se that's necessarily a bad thing when you try to at least push back a little bit and try to gauge your fighter, and try to gauge where he's at. It's because sometimes he just needs a little pep talk. Sometimes he just needs a little motivation. We've seen that too. Guys, we've seen Ali versus Sonny Liston. Ali came back in the corner after he felt liniment was in Gliston's gloves, and he's telling Angel Dundee, cut my gloves off. I can't see. I'm done. I'm quitting. I don't want. If Angel Dundee lets him quit there, we never get the greatest of all time, right? So I don't. I saw some comments on Instagram under the post where I looked at this, and people talk about all mental health and all this other stuff because this is why guys are more depressed because people don't let them, express themselves. Shut up, dude. This is a fight. You're in the middle of a fight. It's a different kind of instruction in the middle of a fight. Yes, a trainer doesn't want to hear you say, I don't want to be here. He's got to, it's his job to position you back on the right mental track and get you out there fighting. It's not the end of the world. If a trainer's not allowed to do that, then dude, you don't need a corner, man. I'm telling you, because the instructions are basic at that point. The technical instructions. You've already gone through camp for the technical stuff. You need somebody to guide the corner correctly, and you need somebody to motivate you when you're in that dark place where you may need to come out of. It's I don't know. I feel like you got to do that. I feel like you got to do that. Ultimately, Sonny felt what he felt, and that's it. But and we see it, and obviously he's retiring because of that reason. But I don't necessarily think a trainer is just supposed. Oh, you don't want to fight. All right, well, that's it. You don't want to fight. I also feel like it's the opposite, where a trainer actually should probably protect the fighter who may be on the out. And if he can't motivate him, he's got to gauge him. You got to know you're a fighter. You got to motivate him. You got to gauge him in a way where you got to see, okay, I've got to pull him out. He may not have it all there. I can't motivate him. Let me pull him out. And that's a fine line to balance as well. It really is, because sometimes a fighter may not be ready to pull out. Sometimes a fighter is ready to be motivated, and you can kind of put him, like I said, put him on the right track, and he can get himself back in the fight. So understanding where you're at there is a difficult balance to play. Different situations, different strokes, different folks, man.
Chris, it's one of those things, and Paulie touched on it. In the number of times I have been calling combat sports, I've heard a coach go, you're losing this fight, I'm stopping it. Way more times I've heard a fighter say, I don't want to be here, you need to stop it. That's incredibly rare. What's your thought as a trainer hearing that from your guy? Do you take that minute to make sure he's all right, and if he's not, you call it? What's your thought on it?
So normally I would say, man, pull the guy out of the fight. This is a dangerous sport. You don't want to put someone out there who doesn't want to be there. But in this situation, I don't think that Sonny was getting hurt at any point during the fight. Yeah, he was getting beat. He was getting bullied. You could tell he didn't want to be there. He definitely wasn't firing all cylinders. But there was a couple rounds later where he gets back into it a little bit. You might end up waking up in round 7 and being like, oh, I'm back in this fight now. I can at least maybe get to the end, maybe try and pull out a decision. Who knows? I think pushing your fighter and motivating them to get back out there, I think is a good thing, especially if you're in there with a guy that's not really hurting you that bad, or is that that dangerous. This literally happened to me in my second to last fight. It was my last win. It was after the second round. I was fighting Mikel Lapierre and the Garden, and I had like an existential crisis. So I'm like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this at 37 years old? Yeah, I'm like, I was uncomfortable. It was after the second round. I'm like, his hands are faster than I expected. I'm gonna have to throw a lot of punches now. I gotta really get in there and bully this guy. And I remember my coach in the corner, he was talking to me. He could tell I was not listening to anything he was saying. And he hit me on the leg and he goes, Champ, what are you doing? I was like, no, nothing. I'm good. And that was all I needed. And I went back out there and got out in the third round. I won every round of that fight, and I threw almost 100 punches around. But there was a moment after that second round that I was like, I don't want to be here. I didn't say it. I didn't verbalize it. So when I saw him do that, I was like, I've been there, brother. I get it. But thank God I didn't say it, because my coach might have pulled me out of the fight. And I wouldn't have won that night, like the way that I did. So I'm not against a coach basically pep talking a guy to get back out there if it's a fight that, one, he's not going to get hurt, but two, he could actually win.
I think we see it in a lot of guys. I think this is what a lot of guys go through, that it's maybe not spoken about enough. I think Danny Garcia was kind of going through this in the Lara fight recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't the same Danny Garcia. He's out there, but he's just kind of, going through.
What am I doing? What am I doing here?
Not connecting, and it's not clicking on any cylinders at all. I think we start going through this at a certain point, and like I said, I think we're just used up. And it may not be physical, like you said, Champ. It could be mental too. It's just not there. And you can't get yourself mentally motivated. Well, then physically, even if you're not shot, physically, you're going to be shot, and that's sort of the thing, the same thing. I mean, what you said there with Lapierre, I felt my last 3-4 fights. Most of us don't verbalize it. You didn't verbalize it. I didn't verbalize it. We didn't see Danny verbalize it, really. But Sonny just basically verbalized what I think a lot of fighters can relate to at a later part of their career.
I think this actually happens all the time. This is probably a really common thing. We just, like you said, we just don't verbalize it. We don't
I can just remember my trainer talking through me, like just talking, not really paying attention to him, looking at the ring card girl, holding up numbers, you know, looking at like trying to do the math, how many rounds I got left. I'm like, and looking across the ring, looking into the crowd and be like, and stuff that I used to actually love, you know, like that moment, I used to sit there and be like, this is why I do this. I'm in a huge arena and huge fights and I love this. Instead, I'm like, I want to be on my couch, dude. I don't want to be here.
Once I started hating Fight Week, I think that was a big change for me because I loved Fight Week. I thought it was so much fun. And then, you know, my last like probably 4 or 5 fights, I hated Fight Week. I thought it was a waste of time. I thought it was annoying. I just couldn't wait to just get back to my room and get ready for it because I still like the fight. I love the fighting. But yeah, Fight Week, all those other things really, I didn't find any joy in them anymore. I think everything we're talking about now today, it happens in steps. It may seem like it's overnight, but it's not. It's been building for years and for a lot of us, a lot of fights in a row before we see this collapse. So I think we just saw Sonny's collapse, you know, under a microscope in front of millions of people. But I think this is probably a pretty common occurrence for guys late in their career.
It's another good point. It's gradual. I agree, man. I agree, and hope maybe Sonny joins us on the other side of the ring, you know, and starts being a pundit.
He got high boxing
pundit,
IQ.
An analyst. Sonny, he talks a lot. Sonny talks a lot, man. Sonny could do this.
We'd love to see you here on ProBox TV. As one trainer told me, you don't quit when it's work. You quit when it feels like a job. And to Sonny Edwards, it felt like a job he didn't want to do anymore. But this weekend, of course, December 7th, is going to be an outstanding fight right here. ProBox TV, check it out. Ireland versus Ireland. Pride on the line in our main event. Check it out.
ProBox TV Contender Series. On December 7th, look for an all-out Irish war as Dylan the Real Deal Moran battles Tyrone the Mighty Celt McKenna at the top of a stacked ProBox-worthy card.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.